My dad always listens to stuff like this. I got one.
Oh, this is a good song.
You can add some Stevie Nicks to it. Stevie Nicks. Cool. Because I like to clean up early and then like. What?
She was upside down originally.
She was never a very rich woman. She was never a very beautiful woman. But she created beauty and she created wealth.
Come on, for heaven's sake, let's get that movie going. Now, George, I don't think we want to go there. Let's just say Mom was a wild woman. You know, she used to hunt rhinos.
And your father, was he an adventurer as well?
Oh, no. Daddy was an Englishman. He raised us to be British in a healthy way. That's the kind of family we were. Very little visible emotion. We were also gypsies. We finally settled in New York when I was about 10. I was ready to hit the streets, but my parents insisted I go to school. So they enrolled me in Argentine gigolos, the odd ducks around town who liked to dance as much as I did. Naturally, I was considered a bit fast. The story got out, but I didn't care what anyone else said. I was never out of Harlem in those days. The music was so great, and Josephine Baker was simply the only girl you saw on the chorus line. All you could feel was something good coming from her. She had that thing, that pizzazz. My mother didn't approve of my behavior, but she had her own flirtation, so to speak. She'd even flirt with my boyfriends, and occasionally one would fall flat for her. I never felt comfortable about my looks. Until I met Reed Vreeland.
I didn't want the other boys to associate me with this woman.
She always made it clear that she wanted us to be originals. You've got to be either first in your class or the bottom of the class. Don't be in the middle. That's a wretched piece of advice to give a school kid.
George, why all this family talk? Shouldn't we get to the more exciting stuff?
I find your family life very interesting.
Well, did I tell you about the time when me and my son Frecky were sitting in Brewster, and you'll never guess who flew over our head? Lindbergh!
Charles Augustus Lindbergh will attempt what no man has ever dared. He will attempt to fly the Atlantic non-stop, New York to Paris, alone, all alone.
He flew right over us, en route to Paris. I always thought this was a very lucky sort of summer.
Had you already started working at Harper's Bazaar at this time?
Well, you just moved into the city, and I was going through money like someone goes through whiskey if you're an alcoholic.
How important is money?
Vital. Absolutely vital. Anyone Anyone who thinks otherwise must be insane. Of course, it's very modern.
Advocating that you do way out things. It was a voice crying in the wilderness.
Why don't you paint a map of the world on all four walls of your boys' nursery so they won't grow up with a provincial point of view? Why don't you wear violet velvet mittens with everything?
It appears as though she didn't edit her. On the other hand, stop it.
Everyone was threatened by Diana Vreeland. I mean, she was threatening. She was awesome. She was one of the only people. There were two. I used to say there were only two people in the entire field that ever intimidated me. One was Diana Vreeland. The other one was Dick Avedon. I was terrified of both of them.
Boy, was I lucky that I would have Carmel Snow as my editor and Deanna Vreeland as my fashion editor. And I was like 19 or 20, and I went straight from the Merchant Marine, which meant straight from my home, to my mother, father, and crazy aunt. Brilliant crazy aunt who just exploded with imagination. Instead of saying, do this, we need that in the issue, she'd tell an anecdote. For example, I went to Egypt with Dovima, and she sent me a memo that said, Dick, before you plan these pictures, just think about Cleopatra. Think about those hot nights she's walking on the roof. Everybody is so old. And she's this young, beautiful girl pacing that roof. She just sort of threw your way of thinking.
Nobody did pure female glamour like Dick Avedon. And no one knew it like Deanna Vreeland. She had this taste for the extraordinary and for the extreme. They got no room for someone like me.
Vreeland invented the fashion editor. Before her, it was society ladies who put hats on other society ladies. Now it's promotion ladies who compete with other promotion ladies. No one has equaled her, not nearly.
The magazines before she came were all about how to fit in with your husband or cook a pie or, even glamorous women. But she said, pie? Who cares about pie when there's Russia?
She gave Harper's Bazaar its pep. That was her big contribution. She gave fantasy fashion and romanticized it. Because basically, Dan, it's not romantic. Fashion is a very boring subject. But she gave the energy and the pep to anything she touched. It's important. Even when you talk to her, she gave you pep.
She talked about spread. She talked about visions that she had of a particular spread. And they always sounded kind of fantastical to me. I mean, they would all go off to some remote part of the world with the photographer and glorious models and invent fantasy.
We need adventure, and she was the lady that would go anywhere. If you said to Deanna Vreeland, we're going to put you in a spaceship, and you're going to the moon, she'd go.
I remember when she did this fashion shoot in Arizona at the Porson House by Frank Lloyd Wright. She even modeled herself during the shoot.
I must say I used to love to get an assignment for her because she would get in front of the mirror and become the model that she wanted you to photograph. I remember I had a group of kimonos to do. She got in front of the mirror and showed me how in a kimono you didn't stand straight, curved your body. And she just took on the whole aura. You really felt that she was a geisha girl in front of that mirror.
Every girl in the world should have basic training. The idea is that you learn from exaggeration. The way they move, their voices, their faces, the makeup. God was fair to the Japanese. He gave them no oil, no diamonds, no gold, nothing. But he gave them a sense of style. Style is everything, George. It helps you get up in the morning. It helps you get down the stairs. It's a way of life. Without it, you're nobody. And I'm not talking about a lot of clothes.
She was very aware of which girl had something that wasn't just dress, you know, how do you say, clothing horse. The posture, the body, the movement.
She might do. Might do what? The bones are good.
They were these little kind of washed out little Irish girls from, you know, Yonkers. And I should turn them into queens.
They have to do a great deal for themselves. Their skin, their posture, their walk, their interest in things, their education.
She said, even if you're wearing clothes, shoes, and boots, your toenails have to be perfect. You know, it was like...
It was so different from America.
Well, say lesbian a few times. Lesbian. Good. And again. Lesbian. With more feeling. Lesbian. Lesbian.
Rita sent for me in June. I thought all of us were going to get the elbow. I thought she'd bring all the Harvard's Bazaar photographers. It was rain and Jean didn't want to go and she was crying and all her mascara was running. We looked like a couple of drowned rats. We walked into her office and she said, "Stop!" And Jean,
The key fashion magazine.
Mrs. Vreeland was the perfect oracle for what was happening in the world. I think she understood this whole youth quake. She understood this influence of music and film.
She was waiting for the 60s. It was a revolution and probably brought back the 20s to her because that was her period, again, where everything was thrown out and it was the new. There was a social, there was a sexual, there was a political revolution.
Freedom. And of course, the music. Isn't Mick marvelous? Those lips. We did his photograph in '64 when he was quite plump.
the first picture ever published of Mick was with Vreeland because I offered it to British folk and they said no. And I sent it to Vreeland.
Mrs. Vreeland really brought us into a modern period.
I think, you see, we're living in a scientific age, and I don't think that that's the only thing that brings us forward, is science.
The first time models, like Twiggy, became personalities instead of simply mannequins.
She would say, push their fall.
For her, the most important thing was that it wasn't boring. Don't be boring.
Through the pages, she used people like Verushka looking like a leopard.
I mean, this world without a leopard. I don't want to be here.
Man!
And then we heard about this man, and he was 7 feet and some inches.
Got to give people what they can't get at home. You know, give them something that will just make them travel in their minds. Take them somewhere.